Thank you, Bhagwan. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa, Ravidikacharya Ashtotirtha Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa, Ravidikacharya Ashtotirtha Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So Prabhus, I'm afraid I'm going to have to end the class at 8:40. 8:40. Yeah, including questions. So our friend online may not get a chance, but I have too much going on. Okay, Narayanam Namaskritya. Narang Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator and commentator, and in that way invoke all auspiciousness. Nashta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. All right. Now, forgive me, I'm going to have to take this off. Hot Kirtan. Deva Vrata Prabhu. Okay. Now, forgive me. Did I do Om Namo? I don't think I did. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 12th day of July 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 5 entitled The Creative Impetus, text, Chapter 19, Description of the Island of Jambudvip. Text number 28. Okay. Yadi atra naha svarga sukhavisheshitam srishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam te najanabhe smitimadj janma naksyad varshe harir yad bhajatam shamtanoti yad jatanak swarga sukhavisheshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam te najanabhe smiti manjanma naksyad varshe hari yad bhajatam shamtanoti yad jatanak swarga sukhavisheshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam te najanabhe smiti manjanma naksyad varshe hari yad bhajatam shamtanoti yad jatanak swarga sukhavisheshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam te najanabhe smiti marjanma naksyad varshe hari yad bhajatam shamtanoti yad jatanak swarga sukhavisheshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam te najanabhe smiti manjanma naksyad varshe hari yad bhajatam shamtanoti naksyaga sukhaviteshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam name smiti manjanma naksyad varshe hari nak bhajatam shamtanoti. Can you do? Yad yatranak sukhavisheshitam svishtasya suktasya kritasya shobhanam te najanabhe smiti manjanma naksyad varshe hari yad bhajatam shamtanoti. Okay. Anyone online? Zoom?
Yad atra na sharga shukha meshitam.
Yad yatanak swarga sukhavasheshitam.
Shishtasya shuktasya kritasya shobhanam.
Svishtasya suktasya kutasya shobhanam.
Tena janabe shitimat janma nashat.
Tena janabe smitimat janma naksyad.
Barshe hari yad bhajatam sham tanoti.
Varshe hiriyan bhajatam shantanoti. Yadi, if, atra, in this heavenly planet, naha, of us, svarga sukha abhasheshitam, whatever remains after the enjoyment of heavenly happiness. Suishtasya, of a perfect sacrifice. Suuktasya, of diligently studying the Vedic literature. Kritasya, of having performed a kind act. Shobhanam, the resultant actions. Tena, by such a resultant action. Ajanabhe, in the land of Bharatavarsha. Smritimat janma, a birth enabling one to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Naha, of us. Syat, let there be. Varshe, in the land. Harihi, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yat, wherein. Bhajatam, of the devotees. Shamtanoti, expands the auspiciousness. Okay. Translation. We are now living in the heavenly planets, undoubtedly as a result of our having performed ritualistic ceremonies, pious activities, and yajnas, and having studied the Vedas. However, our lives here will one day be finished. We pray that at that time, if any merit remains from our pious activities, we may again take birth in Bharatavarsha as human beings able to remember the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord is so kind that He personally comes to the land of Bharatavarsha and expands the good fortune of its people. Purport. It is certainly as a result of pious activities that one takes birth in the heavenly planets. But from those planets, one must nevertheless come down again to earth, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Chine punye marchalokam vishanti. Even the demigods must return to earth to work like ordinary men when the results of their pious activities expire. Nevertheless, the demigods desire to come to the land of Bharatavarsha if even a small portion of the merits of their pious activities remains. In other words, to take birth in Bharatavarsha, one must perform more pious activities than the demigods. In Bharatavarsha, one is naturally Krishna conscious. And if one further cultivates his Krishna consciousness, by the grace of Krishna, he certainly expands his good fortune by becoming perfect in Krishna consciousness and very easily going back home, back to Godhead. In many other places in the Vedic literature, it is found that even the demigods want to come to this land of Bharatavarsha. A foolish person may desire to be promoted to the heavenly planets as a result of his pious activities. But even the demigods from the heavenly planets want to come to Bharatavarsha and achieve bodies that may be very easily used to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repeatedly says, Bharata bhumite hoila manusha janma jar, janma sarta kari kara para upakar. A human being born in the land of Bharatavarsha has the special prerogative to develop Krishna consciousness. Therefore, those already born in Bharatavarsha should take lessons from the Shastras and Guru, and should fully take advantage of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to be fully equipped with Krishna consciousness. By taking full advantage of Krishna consciousness, one goes back home, back to Godhead. Yanti madhyajino pimam. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore spreading this facility to human society by opening many, many centers all over the world so that people may associate with the pure devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement, understand the science of Krishna consciousness, and ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. And if I'm not wrong, if I'm not incorrect, this is the end of the prayers that we've been hearing since the last chapter. Residents of Bhartavarsha or Jambudvip offer prayers. And then the demigods also got in on this, although they're not residents of Jambudvip. But now we're going to hear a description of Jambudvip, all of these planets and mountains and all these things. So this is very interesting because the demigods, we should understand how opulent their lifestyle is. First of all, they live a lot longer than those on Earth. What is it? 6 months is equal to our one day means 12 hours. So it's in 24 hours per year. So they're living thousands and thousands of years. But they're not getting old. They're not getting sick. They are dying eventually, but they live. They have all facility for all kinds of sense gratification. And yet these demigods are realizing that what's the use of it? You know, they performed all kinds of sacrifices and austerities in order to get there, and now they're enjoying the fruits. But it's all material, and it means that they're expending the pious credits that they achieved from performing these things. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita in a few verses. But then Prabhupada quotes, as he has elsewhere here, Tetam bhuktva svarga lokam vishalam. This is the line in the 9th chapter describing how one who gets to the heavenly planets can enjoy, vishala means very large, long-lasting sense gratification. Bhuktva svarga lokam. But then chine punye. You're using up your pious credits. And when they become chine, when they become finished, martya lokam vishanti. You have to come back down here. So this is the nature of all the sense gratification. It may just come into your lap due to previous activities, so you may have to work very, very hard for it in this lifetime and then achieve it. But it's temporary. It comes to an end. As you so nicely quoted that verse last night. I think you quoted it. I think I will. Yahi sangsparjita boga, dukkha yonayevate. Actually, what it says is the very boga, the very enjoyment that you achieve through sense gratification, literally by contact of the senses with the sense objects, that enjoyment is the source of your misery. Boga dukkha yonayevate. Now, if anyone actually contemplates on this verse and thinks the deep meaning of it, then the whole enterprise of working hard and trying to enjoy the senses becomes self-defeating. It's obviously not the way to go. But if you have no other understanding of how you can enjoy, if you're in ignorance, this is the real problem, is that we're in ignorance, then that's all you have, and so you try very hard for that, either on this planet or in this lifetime, or by going to the heavenly planets, whatever. But whatever sense gratification you enjoy, that very pleasure is the source of your misery. Now that really throws a cold blanket over the whole idea of trying to enjoy the senses, if you're intelligent. But the problem is that the enjoyment and the desire to attain that enjoyment, that both of those cover your knowledge. Avitam jnanametena jnanino nityavaidana, 3rd chapter Bhagavad Gita, describing the effects of kama, a very strong desire to enjoy sex life, etc. And then Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, Avitam jnanametena jnana nityanava. We are known as the jnanina. We are the knower. We are meant to be full of transcendental knowledge. But it all becomes covered when we turn away from Krishna and we engage in sense gratification. Avitam means covered. So therefore, Krishna says, this lust is the eternal enemy of the living entity. Avitam jnana kama rupena kon dushparena analena cha. And it's never satisfied. It burns like fire. If you do it, you want to do it again. You want to do it again, and then you can lament, oh, I can't do it anymore, I can't get it anymore. So that's where the hankering and the lamenting comes in. It's all based on trying to enjoy through this material body. So the demigods, they realize that. Even though they're in heaven, it's the same deal. It may be more elaborate or more long-lasting sense gratification. But ultimately, it produces the misery of having to give it all up and come back again to this world of death, Krishna says. He doesn't mince any words. Bhartya lokam vishanti. Evam tahi dhamam hanupapanna gadakatam kama kama labande. So he says, you're just going and coming. You're not making any progress toward your goal of life, which is to get out of this realm and attain the world of eternal bliss and happiness, Satchidananda Vigraha. So if you understand this even rudimentarily, not in great detail, then at least you'll question, is there such a place? Is there such a world of enjoyment or a means of enjoyment that doesn't decrease, that doesn't end, and end in all kinds of pain and suffering? And if you come in contact with the proper source of knowledge, primarily in this age, obviously, Prabhupada's books, then the answer is yes. That you are a spirit soul, you're not this body, and the spirit is trying to enjoy through matter, and that's an impossible situation. It's not going to work. It's not going to bring you to that point of everlasting happiness with no end, obviously. Everyone knows that. But know that they think, well, this is all there is, so let me try to enjoy as much as I can. Now, there are different grades. One can do it in the mode of goodness. One can do it with all kinds of restrictions. Okay, have a family, be responsible, and okay. But in this, it's all the same thing, begins with the sex desire and expands into the family. What is it? Atta griha cheta sutta apta vidyaya. This is the entanglement that comes. This is with ordinary pious sense gratification, really. But you have to have a means of sustenance. So that's the chaitra. Chaitra means a field. In old days, and even most times in India, that means getting a field and farming and in this way. But chaitra can just mean a job, some way or other. You have to, and a place. Just you have to have a place. Just like you're in ISKCON for a while, and then somebody is aspiring to get married. Okay. Then it comes, we've got to get an apartment. I can't stay in a brahmachari ashram, and you're in a brahmacharini ashram. We've got to have the place. So that's also the chaitra. And then if things go normally, then you have sutta, sons, daughters, children. And apta, of course, relatives. And I don't know if anyone's Jewish here. We used to call it the whole mishpucha. Does it ring a bell? Anyway, that's it. The relatives, the in-laws. You don't just marry someone, you marry a whole family, So. And of course the wife is there. Kalatra stri means to expand. Prabhupada taught us to expand your attractions and your attachments. And to support it all, vitta, I got to make some money. Got to have wealth, So the whole thing begins with the sex desire, the kama, and expands into the very, very solid false ego. Vitta janasya moho yamaham mamete. This illusion, this bewilderment, is known as aham mamete, the essence of a false ego. Me and mine. I am this body, and the things related to the body are mine, and that's just the way life is. Isn't that normal? No. It's completely abnormal. It's completely, how should I say, a big mistake that we get ourselves trapped into this body, which is just changing. Our body is changing all the time, and we're going to get new bodies. We've had so many other bodies, which we've identified with, try to enjoy through. I take this walk usually in the evening. And it's a little warmer now, so there's these bugs crawling sometimes across the sidewalk. So I have this flashlight. I don't want to step on any of them, And I see various species. I don't know if you know, but there's a high population of crickets around here. I used to have one trapped under my refrigerator. And every evening, I'd hear it'd be loud, because he's all alone. They're calling, but there's no other cricket, so he's calling. Finally, I got him out of there, and I took him out, put him outside. But they have their own program, very rudimentary, trying to find that female cricket, start a family, hunt for food, watch out for those big monsters with the big feet, We were in that situation. We've all been through that. How many times have we been around this, thing, going up to the heavenly planets, down to this earth, and getting more degraded, losing the human form of life? This is called Bhavasagra, the ocean of birth and death. So, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala Purana. All of the chapters, all of the stories, everything leads ultimately to Bhakti. Right? It leads ultimately to the theme of the Bhagavatam, said at the very beginning. Dharma projitakaitavo tapadamoni matsaranam sadam vejam. That in this book, it's all about Dharma. But you have to know what Dharma means. Prabhupada explains so beautifully in that book we put together, Dharma, the Way of Transcendence, based on 126 to 1221, I believe it is. It's a whole lesson there. Because human life without Dharma is what? Who knows? Animal life. There's that verse Prabhupada would quote from the Hitopadesh. What do we share with the animals? Ahara, nidra, bhayamaitunangsha, samanya vetat pashapi naranam. Both the pashapi, the animals, and the human beings around them, say eating, sleeping, mating, defending. We may do it in a polished way, but it's the same thing. So, dharma hiteshamadiko vishesho, but the dharma is the distinguishing factor of a human being. Dharma nahina pashapi samana. Without dharma, we just polished animal life. Prabhupada would make that point all the time, right there. So then the question is, what is that dharma? That was Arjun's question. He had lost the track, what his real dharma was, right? In 2:7, I think it is. Karpanidosho pahadas sabhava pachami tvam dharma samudacheta. I'm dharma samudacheta, meaning my consciousness, I'm completely bewildered about what real dharma is. And by this miserly weakness, what it means, karpanidosho pahata sabhava, my natural Kshatriya spirit, which I was engaging for dharmic reasons, is all dharma, I've lost it, upahata. This miserly weakness caused by this relationship, the whole story in the first chapter. He's put into some illusion by Krishna so the Gita can be spoken. So he's very concerned because in the Vedic culture, Bharata Varsha, Dharma is primary. What I'm doing according to the Vedas, is it dharmic? This is the way it should be, of course. There's been so much corruption from the Western influence, but that's what is being spoken of here, how wonderful Bharata Varsha is, because you naturally take to these dharma, to bhakti. So Arjuna said, now, all I said in the first chapter, it brought me to this point, paralysis. What good is it? So he surrenders to Krishna, says, now let's not speak as friends anymore. I am your shishya. I am your disciple. Please instruct me. Very, very key phrase. And we should come to that point. If the human being doesn't come to that point of realizing we're helpless and in ignorance, and it's urgent because time is wasting. There's Turnam Yateta. Who quoted that verse recently? You were quoting it. Means don't waste time immediately. Death can come at any time. That's in the beginning of the verse. As long as you haven't died. Turnam Yateta Nambade. What does this Yateta mean? This is the important word. Yati, to strive. A yati is another word for a sannyasi, because they're always striving. They're meant to strive. Yeah. So, what should you strive for? As long as you haven't died. Shreya. Nikshreya, the ultimate good. And I think that's in this verse, isn't it? Oh, no, there's another verse I was going to quote. So, this is one of the Bhagavatam again and again comes to this point. That verse you quoted is Brahmana Prabhupada's favorites, and it's one we should really all know. Because it's a call to the human being to recognize the great value you have. Here, they're recognizing the great value of birth as human beings in Bharatavarsha. But birth of a human being anywhere on earth is a tremendous opportunity. This is what Prabhupada came to teach, is that don't waste this precious human life. You've gotten after many, many births in lower species. There's a verse like that which I forget about. Those who don't surrender to Govinda are wasting their time, fools. So that's a central message. So the urgency of first understanding, who am I? What is this world? Where did it all come from? What is God? What are the relations between? It's called Sambandha Gyan. On the basis of that Sambandha Gyan, then you can further inquire, well, what do I do in order to realize that, and in order to regain and reawaken my relationship with that Supreme Lord, which is really what's valuable, the only thing valuable in this world. I was just, if you stay aware with what's going on in the world inside a little bit, you realize, you can see very so graphically how false beliefs, convictions, completely convinced of something that's not true, can cause havoc in your own life and in society in general. Let's go back a few years to like the 30s in Europe, And anyone who knows a little bit about history, those were the years when fascism became ascendant. First in Italy and then in Germany. And it's all based on a false philosophy of nationalism, the racism, and that this group of people is the source of all our problems. So we'll suppress them or even annihilate them, exterminate them. And they did it. This is horror, all on the basis of this false propaganda and this illusion. So that's the problem in this world, is that the truth is obscured by ignorance, and that's Maya's influence. She's employed. So that's what Prabhupada came to fight. That's all the great acharyas came. What makes an acharya? There's three elements. Could anyone tell? Huh?
Learn it, live it, give it.
Learn it, live it, give it. Thank you. That's my little motto. So one who is learned in the Shastras, knows the Shastras, lives according to their tenets, and takes the trouble to preach, to teach out of compassion. This is another verse I was going to quote. I think you quoted it recently. Someone did. About, Krishna is speaking about preaching. He's speaking to his friends. It's interesting. There's a chapter in the 10th canto, chapter 22, I think, where Krishna steals the garments of the gopis. But then there's a break, and then there's a different part of the chapter, part 2 of that chapter. Krishna's wandering in the forest with his friends, and he starts praising the trees. Because the trees are exemplars of tolerance, but also of giving, of compassion, right? They give their fruit, they give their flowers, they give shade, they even give their body, the wood, the bark, everything. And they don't complain. So Krishna, on taking inspire on the basis of that, he gives this essential verse that's really one we should all know. He's describing to his friends. It says, Etavad janma sapalyam. Now that first line is so important. It means to make your birth fruitful in the human birth. To fulfill the promise of your human birth, here's what you have to do. Dehinam. Dehinam means us, the living entity, embodied living being. That's all of us. Dehishu, for other living, embodied living beings, pranar, artar, diya, vacha, shreya achananam sada. Here's this word shreya again. So he says, with your life force, life air, with your money, whatever wealth you have, with your intelligence and with your words. When you think about it, that covers pretty much everything. What should you do? You should try to give those dehishus, other living beings, work for their benefit, their ultimate benefit. How to inspire them or give them the ultimate good. Nikshreyasa. This word, this pairing of Shreyas and Preyas is key to understanding our philosophy and our practice and the preaching. Do you know what it means, Tyler? Preyas, Shreyas and Preyas. Govardhan, you've heard this one.
Immediate pleasure and then
Ultimate, yeah. And Preyas is children, little animals, and animalistic human beings. They're always adults. They're always trying to. It may not be the second that they'll enjoy, but tomorrow or next week, or even at my retirement, I plan it all out. I have the money in the bank. I got the 401ks. I got my retirement money. I know where I'm going to live. I'm going to play golf all day and drink beer. That's Preyas, even though it may come 50 years later. But mostly it means like immediate pleasure. Immediate pleasure that you can enjoy. And just see, we live in that culture. Immediate gratification. I'll watch this, I'll go here, I'll drink this. Why should I, shoot this up, I mean, I always like the drug analogy, because that concentrates the whole thing. I mean, anyone who's a little sane knows that you can destroy yourself with these drugs, right? So, but still, it's so prominent because it promises that immediate gratification. And so much of that immediate gratification is relieving the misery that I created by previous gratification. How can I get any sleep? How can I get some peace? I've damaged my body by this extreme sports or something. Now I'm always in pain. How can I always get free of that? Oh, this OxyContin, this will be fine. This is described. And you get addicted. Opioid crisis. There's more overdoses now than there've been ever before in America for drugs. All of this anxiety. I mean, when I was growing up and as a kid, I was 13, 14. I was reading the papers. I knew what was going on. And nowadays you don't have to read anything. You just hit a button and you get the news. These kids know. They know that the world, according to what seems to be the science, they're doomed. They're doomed. They're not stopping these great greenhouse gases. It's going on. It's getting hotter and hotter. Look at the heat waves and the storms and the floods. And you don't have to look very far. We're living in a magic kingdom here. 65 degrees. I'll take it, rather than 120. All over the place. Once every 1,000 years. And no, not anymore. Once every 1,000 years. So the young people are very, very prone to be depressed about their future. Reasonably. They're the ones who are going to live in 20, 30, 40, and 50. I'm not. Old timers even. So the point is that the whole planet is going through the result of this Yehi Sangsparjita Bhoga Dukkha Yone Evite. They're all trying to enjoy more and more, building and mining plastics everywhere, even in your bloodstream. It's just insane. It's exactly from the Shastra. Because people aren't living simply and naturally, close to nature, as Prabhupada would say, simple living, high thinking. They've made it so complicated, and they're making even the planet practically unlivable. Now, we know from the Shastra there's going to be 10,000 years of Lord Chaitanya, so I'm saying it looks that way. And so that's a big anxiety for people who are not chanting Hare Krishna. We have hope. So we can take from this verse in this section in the Srimad Bhagavatam is that we have a responsibility. We've been given the knowledge, and if we should take it, we should learn it, and we should give it. That giving it is so important. This Krishna himself is saying this is the perfection of our life. Is to work to enlighten others about the ultimate good, Shreya, which means Krishna consciousness. Going back home, back to Godhead. Escaping from this ocean of birth and death, or as we say every morning, samsara dhava analita. The blazing forest fire of samsara. Pick your poison. Would you rather be out in the middle of the ocean with a leaky boat, or would you rather be in the middle of a forest fire with no hope of reaching? That's our situation in the material world. Hopeless. There's no survivors. Nobody gets out alive, But we have the knowledge and the practice by which even in this Holocaust, so to speak, we can still be peaceful and hopeful and fulfill our lives pranayata diyavacha shreyachanam sada, by doing all we can to try to help others to take step 1, takes 2, 3, 5, 10 on this path, which has been proved. Has been proved to, and in the not only in the Shastra, but we see from so many of my God brothers who've taken off. Rajendranath Prabhu went back to Godhead. There's no question about it. He chanted Krishna at the time of left his body. He was very peaceful. He was hearing, Krishna Katha, very advanced. But he's one of us, We can also do that. So the process works, and even before you leave, you can have a sense of joy and happiness and peace and confidence and a sense of meaning to your life. That's so important. They say that, even the materialists say that if you have that, then you need that to have some happiness in your life. Otherwise, it's just, you go down, looking for more and more extreme, pleasures. So, we have time for some questions or comments. Govardhan Prabhu, he has a Sankirtan story for us.
Thank you. This might be a silly question, but I know Srila Prabhupada, he would say that human beings and animals, we share 4 basic instincts or needs: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Do the demigods also have them?
Yes. In fact, at the beginning of, what is the chapter? I think it's the 2nd chapter, 11th canto. It's in the 9 Yogendras. They're giving the teaching, 2nd chapter and 3rd chapter. So, I remember reading, Prabhupada would quote some verses all the time. If you listen to the lectures, you read, okay, I should know this verse. So, how's it go? Yeah, I think it's tasmad gurum papadeda jigyashusheya uttamam shabde paripinishnatam brahmanupashamashayam. This is a very important verse because it talks about the absolute need for searching out a guru. Jigyasu uttamam. If one is, again, this word shreya, if one is curious, if one is interested in solving all life's problems and attaining the ultimate good, then one should search out a bona fide guru. And what's the qualification? Shabde, he's completely, well-versed in the Shastra. Pade chanishnatam, Brahmani, and fixed in Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, Krishna, and Brahman upashamashriya mean indifferent or detached from any kind of sense gratification. This is a summary, But what comes before? I was curious, because I knew that verse, but it said tasmad. Now tasmad means therefore. What came before the verse? Because someone's making an argument, Tasmad is important. So I looked it up, and it starts out, one of the 9 Yogendras is describing the hopelessness of material endeavor, of material life. It says, I want you to be intelligent. I forget the Sanskrit, but intelligent to know that people get together, normal people for sex life, and they build a family and everything, hoping for happiness. What else do you do it for? But you should understand that in the end, you get just the opposite. Even you say when you get married, it's classic, right? Till death do us part. Well, that's going to be pretty traumatic. Is there another option that how I can become happy? No. You have to get married and have children. Everyone else is doing it. Okay. The point is, there's an end to it. And then there's misery. I mean, lying there on the bed, with some horrible disease, your wife or your husband has died, or maybe they're looking for you. The whole thing is ultimately hopeless. So that's the first thing, ordinary endeavor, And then he talks about the heavenly planets. So, well, maybe I'll get to heaven. But then he says, but there's also rivalry there. There's also, fear. Read the Bhagavatam. What happens with Bali Maharaj when he marshals all the demons and they take over the heavenly planets of the Indra? That was pretty. They had to run, go. I don't know where they went, but they escaped. And then Aditi had to come and pray. How can I get my children get their kingdoms back? And so Vamana comes, and that's how they get. But it's not secure up there. Even though you may enjoy for a long time, there's always that worry, are the demons coming, Or how old am I anyway? Do I have, how much have I got in my punya bank? So it's not
unadulterated happiness up there, you know. So then, therefore, if you want to attain the ultimate Shreya, which is Satchidananda, you know, in other words, no coming down, you go back and never come back again. Krishna promises several places in the Bhagavad Gita. No death, no old age, no disease. Then you have to inquire from a bona fide guru, and then you get this instruction. So the answer is yes. They're also, and Bhadrinarayan Maharaj, I think, who told me, and I forget the detail, but when you fall from the heavenly planets, what was it? I mean, it was like.
It's the sphere of the Rakshasas, and they're watching. That's their place, because when you fall, when your brain is exhausted, you're falling back to
Can you use
earth,
the microphone?
and the Rakshasas come. It's from the Upanishads somewhere. The Rakshasas are watching out for, you know, when your time's up,
Punya is all
you don't exactly die, you're still conscious, but you become sort of like powerless, comatose, and you fall from heaven, you know.
They literally fall.
Your wad's exhausted. And the Rakshasas, one of their places is Antariksha, the space between heaven and earth. So that's tasty morsels for them.
How they come down.
They pounce, and what happens is when the soul is experiencing that very violent death, they cry, and the soul goes in that tear, and that tear falls to earth.
As rain.
As it nourishes
and goes
the grain.
Into the grain, is eating it, yeah.
That's the continuum. It's not in the Karmakanda section, it's in the Upanishads.
You still want to perform that Aswamedha sacrifice and go to heaven? Is it right? But, Yad Gadvananabhaktante Dhamma Paramang Vama, Krishna says, if you come to my place, you don't have to come back. You don't have to come back. So, John, that's very interesting. No, thanks for telling us. Okay.
I love the journey of Krishna consciousness because I've been practicing about a decade, and there's these little nuggets or seeds that are planted years ago that I didn't have any realization of. And then so many years later, they get illuminated. It happened last night with Devarata when he was on the Vyasasan talking about Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah. It
was something Bhaktivinoda Tirtha told me a long time ago, and now I realize it. You just did the same thing when you asked me about Preya and Shreya. I was on a japa walk a long time ago with Bhaktivinoda Tirtha, and he told me that this generation's greatest threat is their addiction to immediate pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So he's talking about Preya, right? And you asked me, do you know what it means? I do. I don't know what it means, you know, Sanskrit, but he's told me about that, and then you very clearly defined that.
Yeah.
So I had two questions. One was, because I was going to ask, is there suffering in the heavenly planets, and is there pleasure in the hellish planets? And you kind of just defined that there is suffering in the heavenly planets.
Yeah, the pleasure in the hellish planets is when they stop for a minute from beating you and torturing you and throwing you off the cliff. You can imagine how pleasurable that is.
And one of my early struggles, as Vijay Prabhu knows, I was like, kind of wanted to go to the heavenly planets when I showed up here. And that was the nail in the coffin right there. That was horrifying.
That's what it's supposed to be.
And I remember Rajanananda Prabhu said when we come back and we go through the cycle of life, you know, we go up the species, he says, we'll be very happy to be cockroaches living in a bathroom with our cockroach family, right? Like, yes, even though we're now cockroaches back here. Like,
at least we don't have to worry about the Rakshasas eating us.
That's horrible. Yeah. So, yeah, I gotta figure it out in this life, man.
You just sit there and change your japa from 5:15 to 7.
Okay, yeah, yes, right.
We're gonna work that out.
All right, I'm getting better at it. They're helping protect me to do that.
We're gonna have some shackles over there.
Okay, all right, well, better that than the shackles that are gonna bring me down from heaven. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. It's this, and I tried to ask this question a couple weeks ago, but I didn't have it so defined, but I think I can do it now, is like, you were talking about the very pleasure that we have is the misery that we have in you.
The pleasure that we have is the source of our misery.
Okay, so
Yoni, it gives birth to it.
But to me, it sounded, because I was trying to figure, okay, I was going to ask how that works to process, and you're saying that, okay, so you're experiencing this material pleasure, and then later you'll have suffering commensurate to the pleasure you're receiving. But I'm trying to get at the pleasure that's being had materially, because the person who's enjoying their temporary material sense pleasure, they're going to tell you, I feel good right now. Right. I feel relief. I feel warm. I feel full.
Yes.
But are they actually experiencing pleasure when they're?
Yeah, there's some pleasure there.
So
but
that's
the whole thing is it's limited, and temporary. It's limited and temporary. I mean, let's face it. There's sense gratification is real.
Okay.
It's temporary, and therefore it's sometimes asat. You can say it's illusory, but it's there, and that covers our understanding. People don't want to hear about it. Are you kidding? Give up illicit sex and meat eating and drugs? Not for me. I'll try something else. So yes, but the after effect is you want it again, and you can't, and maybe you can't get it, or the reaction is that someone else exploits you for the same sense gratification. Okay, so now let me drag you off, and you'll become my slave, and you'll be for my sense gratification. In other words, when you're in that realm, you're in this material world. It's a very delicate thing. Your body has to be healthy. You have to be, so many prerequisites in order to enjoy a little flickering sense gratification. But the result is you're going to take a birth again. You're going to completely ignore or forget about any transcendental thing, any austerity. I don't want any austerity. I got enough austerity going to work, So the thing is that you can see how it's the source of everything. It covers your knowledge, makes you want to do it again, plants a seed of desire, bring you back again. This is the science. Those unfulfilled desires, because you always want to do it again. It's never satisfied, and it burns like fire. Okay. So now your mind is full of all this, but I can't do it anymore. I'm too old. Oh, I still desire it, but I can't. That in itself is a misery. You see how the problem is with sense gratification. So, Vijay has some.
Many times, Prabhupada, by the way, nice class, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Glories Prabhupada.
Many times, Prabhupada said there's no pleasure in the material world. Now, then he said also, there is some pleasure, it's in Hawaii. He said some things like that. But I was thinking that compared to actual pleasure, like in the spiritual world, this is not pleasure. Whatever pleasure they're experiencing here, it's like nothing compared to the pleasure that's in the spiritual world, in devotional service.
So in one sense, there's no pleasure.
Nothing.
Yeah, give David.
One of my favorite quotes, I just read this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think last week. Prabhupada quotes Vidyapati, and he says that the pleasure of the material world is like a tiny drop, and the pleasure of the spiritual world is like an ocean.
Yeah.
You can't be satisfied with a tiny drop.
Or the thing of the drop the drop of water in the desert.
Yeah. That's Vidyapati says it.
Yeah. So if it can't be said there's no water in the desert, but what good is that drop? You need a gallon of water to save you. It's not there. So, if you will allow me, I'm going to end with the verse that I wasn't able to share with you yesterday. Krishna throwing a tantrum. Now, this is a verse by Bilvamangal Thakur, and this is transcendental pleasure. To meditate on how Krishna himself is throwing a tantrum. It's not pleasure if you're a parent watching your kid roll around on the kitchen floor and break dishes and everything. What's going on. But it's pleasure and the aesthetics of the Sanskrit. Balaram knows this first, but he probably won't chant with me. Nitam nava nitam te natapitam payakrame murari. Now the last word, namami, I offer my obeisances. Who stole my butter? Who drank my milk? And where can my flute be found? I bow to the cowherd child who shouts these words as he rolls on the ground. Now, that's just one little drop in the ocean of Krishna's pastimes, spoken by his wonderful poet, Bilvamangal Thakur. This is how we can enjoy. We have the Bhagavatam, all the prayers of the gopis, beautiful shlokas, and so much. You can be like have no money. You can be, your health is weak, and everything, but you can enjoy like anything by just absorbing yourself in the transcendental sound vibration, and helping others to enjoy that sound vibration. We saw it with Srila Prabhupada. His health wasn't that great. He was elderly. He was traveling constantly. So much headaches from the movement, dismanaging and so. But he was always transcendental, blissful, and he was giving out the bliss to everybody and creating, so much effort, building the temples in Mayapur and Vrindavan, in Bombay and everything. so everyone could get a chance. That's fulfillment of our life. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.